Hey guys, so today I wanted to share the story of when I witnessed a death. This is one of the most pivotal moments of my life, something that happened to me that forever changed who I am as a person, and just kind of the way that I view the world and so much about me. So I wanted to share this story. I've wanted to share this for a long time. I've shared bits and pieces of it, like I had like on my Tumblr blog. I had another blog before that called Sonnets and Scribbles with my poetry when I was younger. So I've shared bits and pieces here and there, but I've never like sat down to share the full story of what happened almost 10 years ago now. So that's what I'm gonna do today. So this was back in 2013. So it's crazy, that'll be 10 years next year. I was 21 years old and I was living in Malibu, California. And at the time, I was going to, it was Monday night and I was going to Bible study. I went to Bible study at Pepperdine, even though it was a college. I didn't go to the college, but one of the students, like, I think they noticed me at church and stuff because the church was right next to it. And they invited me to come be a part of it. So I really enjoyed going to Bible study. I went every Monday night and that was really cool. But then this one night, so what happened was my car was having some troubles, and my car had been having troubles for a long time. There was like the emergency light would come on, the coolant like was out. There was like different things that would happen. And so my dad would help me, my brother would help me. I'd take it into the mechanic. It just was kind of like a very troubled car. And it seemed fine for a while. And then this night I was driving February 11th, 2013. So it was a couple days before Valentine's Day. So I'm driving at night to Bible study. I think it was like around 7 p.m.-ish. I remember it was dark. And I'm driving and I remember that the emergency light comes on. And I got kind of freaked out because my dad had kind of been saying like, the car's having a lot of issues, you need to be really careful. And one of the big things is that the main road, so if you've ever been to California, there's this really long road that goes up and down the coast called Pacific Coast Highway. It goes like, I don't even know where it starts in it. I think it goes all the way up to like Washington. It goes all the way down to like, well, maybe Oregon, but it goes up very far up the coast on the western United States. And I don't know how it is in the rest, but in Malibu, this road is very, very dangerous. It's notorious for lots of accidents. There's literally a committee in Malibu called A Safer PCH that's trying to like help make the road safer because of how many people that have died on this road. It's kind of crazy, but it's literally the main road that you have to take to get to like everywhere in Malibu. So I was going to Bible study and my light comes on and I'm like, oh great, of course it's on PCH, which is like not safe at all. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. I called my brother, I called my best friend, which is Skylar, and they both came to help me. I think I asked Skylar to come because my brother was at like a recording session and he couldn't come right away. I think that's what happened. And Skylar was my best friend. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just have him come hang out with me. So I had my brother come and he looked at the car. My brother is like a mechanic and stuff. He knows a lot about cars. And as he was checking things out, my battery died. So my car is literally, I'm stuck on the side of the road, this really dangerous highway. I call my dad. My dad's like, you need to get off PCH. Like, PCH is really dangerous. You shouldn't be there. Like, you need to get off right now and wait until someone can come and tow your car. I was like, okay, Dad. Like, I don't know. I kind of just thought like, I think he's being kind of dramatic. I mean, he was like, when the tow truck driver gets there, you need to stand as far off into the hill as you can. Like, just be careful. There's drunk drivers out there. And I feel like parents are just very, they're like, be careful, dear kids. You don't really take them seriously sometimes. But it ended up very prophetic what he said. So I was like, okay, so we had called a tow truck and Malibu's a very rural area. It's kind of like out a bit from the city. So I think they had said it was going to be like an hour or something before someone was going to be there. So my brother had to leave. So my friend Skylar and he took me to the grocery store that was close to where my car had broken down. And we were like, it's just such a weird thing to me. Like, we were at the grocery store. I got chocolate milk. I was obsessed with chocolate milk at the time. And we were just like laughing, just having like a normal time, whatever. And so then we got a call that like the tow truck driver was on his way. So we go back to my car and we're on the side of the road and this tow truck driver comes and we meet him. His name is Ron. We're like, hello, nice to meet you, talking with him. He just like seems like a nice guy. He's kind of like cracking jokes, whatever. And he kind of asked me, you know, what's going on with the car. And I really like started shaking as I'm telling this story because I haven't told this in like a really long time. And I feel like I still kind of like feel this in my body when I tell this because I haven't talked about it in a really long time. So we're talking to Ron, and he basically is getting my car. He like goes into the driver's seat of my car and checks things out. And then he is gonna he's bringing my car up onto the ramp, if that makes sense, of the tow truck. So hearing my dad's voice in my head, I'm like, Skylar, we should like go up this hill. Like, so this is the road. Here's the road. My car's over here and there's a hill on the side. So my dad had said, get off as far as you can away from the road because it was dark and it was getting kind of late at this point. So I'm up on this hill and this tow truck driver is loading my car onto a ramp. I feel like every time I tell a story, it's so confusing. So I'm trying my best here. And so Ron gets the car up on the ramp and I'm kind of like standing on this hill and I can kind of see my car, but like Max and I hear, or not Max, that's my husband, sorry. I feel like Max is just who I always think of. Skylar and I hear this very loud noise and we couldn't quite see exactly what it was, but it was like a very like a crash kind of noise, like just really loud. And I'm like, that's weird. Like we didn't really know what was going on. So we come down the hill and we're looking around and we could see that like basically what happened was Ron had gotten in the car and he was walking around the back. I think he was about to like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was adjusting to like get the car up fully on the ramp. I think it was mostly on the ramp at this point. It's kind of fuzzy because of what happened. And trigger warning, like if you're like, I don't know, this is kind of heavy, so you might want to stop the video at this point if like stuff like this kind of freaks you out. So just don't watch if you, yeah, anyways, just giving you a trigger warning that this is getting really heavy. So we walk over and that was when I saw Ron lying on the ground in a pool of blood. And I didn't really want to think what had happened in the moment. It was so shocking and so horrifying that I was just like, he's hurt. That's what my mind said. My mind said, this man is injured. We need to get him off the road so that no car hits him and makes him more hurt, basically. And so I was like, Skylar, we need to get his body. We need to stop the cars. So meanwhile, there's cars flying down the road next to us. People drive so fast on this highway. And I just sort of in this panic, start jumping out on the road, waving my arms and saying, stop, there's a body, stop, like, don't hurt him. Like, and Skylar's like kind of yelling at me, like, Catherine, get out of the road. What are you doing? You're going to get hit by a car. Like, and I honestly felt kind of crazy in the moment because all I could think about was I just wanted to protect this man and help him so that nobody hurt his body because I thought he was just unconscious. And Skylar's like very protective, I feel like. And he was like, don't come as close as I am. I really don't want you to see this, but I don't think he made it. And I immediately was just like, no, that's not true. He has to have made it. He's fine. We just need to make sure that no one hits him. Like, we need to keep him safe. And Skylar's like, no, Catherine, I don't think he made it. And so it's all kind of a blur of what happened. If we called the cops right away, I honestly, I feel like I sort of blacked out as soon as I saw the body. But the next thing I can remember is that there was another tow truck driver coming up behind us, lighting all these flares and blocking off the road so no one came and hit the body. And everything after that, it just kind of flashes in my mind. I remember suddenly all these people were there, and there were paramedics, there was ambulances, there was a couple that lived in a house that was right by the road, and they came up and they brought their dog and they were just standing there. It's like these flashes in my mind of the night. And I just remember literally my body is I can feel this whole thing in my body right now. But I just remember I started sobbing and I didn't stop for I think it was a few hours. I was just hysterically crying and crying and crying. And before anyone got there, Skylar and I were just sitting up on the side of the road. I think this is while the tow truck driver was getting everything ready. I think the police were on their way. The other tow truck driver that came. And I just remember saying to Skylar, what do you think? Do you think that he really died? what, how could this happen? Who do you think he was as a person? Do you think he had a family? Like, just asking him like every question that was just like weighing on me and haunting me. And I also remember that like, as soon as it started hitting me that he was actually gone, I just started like, the first thing I could think of was like God and Jesus. Like, everything in the world just kind of like stopped for a moment and like suspended in time. And I just remember being like, God, 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 Jesus, 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 God, God. Like, I was not saying the Lord's name in vain. I was literally crying out like, God. Like, that was the only really sentence that my brain could form, because I was just like, it was this moment where it struck me how fragile life is, and how you could literally be talking to someone one moment and the next moment they're gone. It's like, just can be pulled out from under you in a second. It was so, I don't even know the word, just like, just completely shocking and like devastating. And I remember sitting up on this hill and just like bawling and bawling and bawling. I remember this couple who lived there and they had their dog. And I remember they were like, they saw me crying. It was weird. I just remember like, I think I was the only person that was crying. Like, my friend Skylar, I think he more shut down and just kind of was like in himself. And I was just like weeping, and like, it was all just kind of pouring out of me. And all these other people there who, I don't really remember who they all even were. I remember paramedics. I remember police officers. I remember this couple. They were just kind of all like in the scene trying to figure out what happened, what was going on. I remember this couple like came up to me and they were like, do you want to hold our dog? Like, would that make you feel better? And I was just like, yes. And I like held onto their dog and was just like kind of comforted by this small animal. And the road had shut down, and this is kind of like a one-way road that goes into like a lot of different parts of LA and stuff. And I remember like there was a ton of cars like backed up for, I mean, it was probably a really bad shutdown. I felt bad for all those people. But my parents, we, called my parents to let them know what happened. And I don't even know how late it was at this point. I mean, I don't know, 11, 12, getting late at night. And I remember like my mom and dad like jumped in their car and like drove as far as they could. And then I remember my dad like got out of his car and just started like running up to like where we were. It was just like, what's happening? What's happening? Like, my dad just like so protective. And it was funny because that was like a funny moment, was like, my dad was wearing pajama pants because he just was like so just like that he like didn't really know what to expect, and just like jumped in the car wearing his pajamas. And it just like, that really like touched my heart, because I could tell that my dad was just like, I want to make sure my daughter's okay. Like, that really meant a lot to me. And I do remember this moment of going out to sit in my dad's car, and I'd asked the police officers, like, I had to leave my car because it was like a crime scene. Oh, and I didn't even get into that of what actually ended up happening. Sorry guys, this story is just very like traumatic, so it's kind of PC. But I'll get into what happened in a second. But basically I remember like going in my car, the police had said that I could like have my purse or like my bag, and it had like my Bible study book in it. And I just remember sitting in my parents', my dad's truck, and just like reading the Bible. And I was just like searching for something beautiful and something true and something good, because the whole night was just like so heavy and dark, and I was waiting for the police to say that I could like go home. So going back to the story, sorry, it's kind of scattered. After Skylar and I heard the crash, we looked up and we saw headlights. There was a car, and immediately it kind of connected in our brains like, that's the car that just hit this man. And I had no idea. It looked like they were stopped, like maybe they were gonna like stop and talk to us. And so we kind of started walking towards the car, and as soon as we did, it like sped off into the like out of sight. So it was like, then it kind of hit us like, oh, this is like a hit and run. Like, this person hit him and then they're driving away. And later we found out that the driver was a woman named Jill Rose. There's all these news articles about it. And I think they found out that she was intoxicated, some kind of drugs, alcohol mix or something. And she had hit him while under the influence. And then 2 miles up the road, she ended up crashing into a parked car. And that was how they ended up finding her and identifying her and everything. And I remember Skylar and I getting in a cop car, driving up to the other scene where she had crashed, and they asked us to like identify her car and everything. It's just crazy. So that's kind of a rundown of what happened that night. And another thing was that when we were in the cop car, I remember kind of hearing the cops talking that I think Ron's brother was also a cop, and they were saying like he might come to like see the scene and everything. And I also remember seeing Ron's information pulled up on a screen in the cop car and seeing that he was an organ donor. And I was talking to Skylar and I was like, you think that probably means he was like a good man because he was gonna donate his organs? Like, it's just like, I was trying anything I could to like piece together, like, who is this person that I literally knew for like a few minutes who now my life is forever changed by? Just such a weird like dichotomy. It's like, and that's the weird thing about this whole situation is like, I feel like most cases of something traumatic, like a grief, a death happening, it's usually a person that you like know really well, or like someone in your family. Whereas this is a person that I literally knew for 5 minutes before they died, but it changed me so deeply. So I heard his brother was coming. I wanted to meet his brother so bad, but his brother actually never ended up coming. I ended up going home. By the time I got home, it was like, I think it was like past midnight. And I was just like, I felt like my body was like kind of going into shock. And I just kind of was like very shut down. But I remember having this feeling like I've always coped with hard things in my life with poetry and writing. And I kind of had this feeling like I need to write this down because it feels like it's like welled up inside of me. I really need to write down what happened so I don't forget. And so I wrote a poem that actually I'm going to read to you guys. I have it right here because this poem kind of ends up being a part of some of the story of things that happened later on. This is a poem that I wrote literally the night that I got home. My parents had gone to bed. I still lived with my parents at that point. And I just went upstairs and I remember sitting on the floor outside because my sisters were in their room, like the room that I shared with them. They had already turned off the light because it was late. So I was out in the hallway sitting on the floor and I wrote this poem about what happened that night. And it's called You Can't Buy a Life. I watched you die tonight. I didn't know you more than 3 or 4 sentences, just casual words exchanged. What happened to the car? Where would you like it towed? You smiled simply, kindly, just doing your job, just helping out a frightened girl on the side of a dangerous highway. I heard the noise. I did not see the car. What was she thinking? How could she leave you there, speeding off in a frantic hurry like that? It must have been fear, I decide. All I remember were the golden headlights as I leapt in front of countless cars, screaming, stop, stop. I pointed at your body. I did not dare to go too close. The ambulance came. They lit the flares. The paramedic approached me. He's passed. Just 5 deep breaths. It's out of your control. And I learned tonight you cannot buy a life with unceasing sobs and helpless prayers of pleading. So I'm left to say, rest now, sir, in the arms of the one who loves you most. I asked him to give you his deepest place of love. I asked him to care for your grieving family. I never got to meet your brother, who I overheard was on his way. So all I have is your full name, RLC. I'll carry it forever with me. So that was the poem that I wrote, and that actually makes me think of one other detail I forgot. It's just all kind of scattered in my brain right now. When I found out that he like officially died, because I still was kind of fighting the reality for a while there after it happened. One of the paramedics came up to me and I'll never forget, like he was very cold. He grabbed my shoulders. It was kind of like rough. Like he was just very not gentle. And he was like, he's passed. Just take 5 deep breaths. Cause I was still sobbing. And I felt like I was kind of like, and people would come to me like, are you okay? And I would be like, am I okay? He's the one that's not okay. Like, I don't know. It was a really weird experience. So that was kind of the last detail that I can remember from that night and what happened. And after what happened after the death to me is even more extraordinary, of just like how everything unfolded and how God healed me in that process. So after the death, I found out that Ron had 3 kids, a wife, and we found out that he was like the sole breadwinner. She was a stay-at-home mom, and this was like it just wasn't a great situation for their family. So My sisters and I talked to them, and we ended up putting on 2 fundraisers for their family. We did one in Malibu where we lived, and then one in Newbury Park, which is where they lived, which was like 45 minutes away. And that was honestly just part of the healing process. There were so many things that happened. Like, so I wrote the poem, and the next day, I'm gonna try to go chronologically here. I wrote the poem. The next morning, I posted it because I wanted to share with my family and friends. I was like, they're all gonna kind of wonder what happened. And I kind of knew there was like these news stories about it coming out. And I was like, I kind of want them to hear from me what my experience was, just so at least they know. So I posted on my Facebook just for my family and friends, like, hey, I just wanted to let you guys know, like, this is what happened to me last night. This is a poem that kind of explains my experience. And I posted the poem on my blog, which I had a blog for my poetry at the time. It got like a couple hundred, maybe 200 to 300 views for like each poem. You know, some of the Sim fam reading the poems and stuff, but it wasn't like a big thing. That blog post that I posted about the poem ended up getting like, it kind of like went viral on like tow truck communities. Like a lot of those people really like root for each other because tow truck driving is such a dangerous job. And so I got reached out to by like these tow truck driving communities. They sent me like these shirts that say like slow down, move over, which is one of the big logos. Like, to when you see a tow truck, that's something that I always want to like tell people about now, is like, when you see a tow truck, slow down and move over. They're doing a dangerous job. There's not a lot of light. Like, it's just not a good thing. So anyway, that was a really interesting thing. And then through me posting the poem, Ron's widow, she reached out to me and she asked if I would come to his funeral, which was that weekend. And then she asked me if I wanted to read the poem at the funeral, which I was just like, oh my gosh, like, it was just very touching that the family just like reached out to me in that way and wanted to include me. And I think I remember meeting with her at like a Mexican restaurant the day before and talking about like the poem and everything, and just getting to meet her, which was really cool. So I went to the funeral, and it was really beautiful. Like, it was just, for me, I was honored that they included me, because like, I'm just a random person. I don't know their family well, but I think some of them kind of like, it was like they knew that like I needed healing as well. Skylar came with me, my brother came with me. It was just really cool to be supported. And I got to go up and read the poem, and I just like, it really broke my heart just to like look around the audience and like, not the audience, the gathering of people. I feel like you think like you're giving, it's not you're giving a speech, but you're just like sharing something with people. And I looked around at everyone, and I was just like, I could hear like all these like sniffs and like tears. It was like people were like there with me that night, like reliving the event. It was crazy. And it was honestly really healing for me to get to share that with his family. And I remember like one of the most heartbreaking moments was after I read the poem, I got to like talk with his family and stuff, and they were all so kind and so gracious to me. And I got to meet his brother, and his brother was like this, like really tall, like just macho, like strong. He was a cop, like really strong guy. And he just came up to me and like had this look of like, he was holding back tears. Like, I could tell he was just so devastated by losing his brother. And he just like thanked me for the poem and for sharing that. And it was just like one of the most like heart-wrenching, like beautiful things I've ever experienced. And Ron's widow, she's so sweet. And she invited me for like 2 years to come and commemorate his death with their family, like on the date that it happened. Like, I mean, it was so powerful that she like invited me in that way and allowed me to heal with them. And like, I didn't even really know him like they did, but it was so healing for me, because for a long time, every time I drove by the spot where it happened, there's like a cross there now, I just would start like shaking and sobbing. And it was just like this really, really heavy thing. But I think the way that their family like welcomed me in was a huge, huge part of my healing. Another thing that was really healing for me was one of my close friends. She went to University of California, Santa Barbara, which is like an hour and a half north of Malibu. She drove down the next day and like spent the whole day with me. Like, I remember she was just like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, like something healing. We went to like a yoga class. We like ate ice cream together. I told her the whole story. I read her the poem. Like, it was just like this really beautiful healing moment. And then doing the fundraisers with my sisters was also like very, very powerful and very healing for me. And another thing that's kind of a side note thing too was like, we went to a city council meeting, and I worked with this lady who was one of our friends. She worked on the council for like a safer PCH. And we like talked at the city council meeting, like about, you know, ways we can make it safer there and kind of ideas that they had, which was really, really cool that they're actually like affecting change for that. So yeah, that's kind of the story of like everything that happened. And I remember in the first few days after the accident, I was just like thinking about, I wonder how this is going to affect me like for the rest of my life. Like, is this just going to be this trauma that I carry around? And certainly it was very traumatic. Like, I still kind of get shaky telling the story. And like, especially when I would drive by that spot, like I just would break down. I probably, if I went back there today, I would feel the same. Oh, actually, I don't know if you guys have been here. Some of you know this, some of you don't, but I ended up moving from California to Tennessee. So I live in Tennessee now, literally across the country from where I used to live. And I moved 2 years after the accident happened. So, but yeah, I guess kind of to wrap it up, just with like thoughts on like death and grief and just sort of the whole healing process. I think it's so important when you go through a trauma or experience a death to reach out to the people around you, find support. I remember the day after it happened, like I came downstairs and like my family was all kind of like, oh, like they didn't really know what to say because it's such a weird, heavy, crazy situation. And I remember just sitting down with them at the table and like crying and telling them exactly what happened and being like, his body, he was just laying there, like how horrible it was. And like, they just listened and let me talk. And that was so important. Like, I was able to tell the story to like some close friends. I was able to share the poem, go to the funeral, like have those fundraisers. Like, those were moments that I really, really needed to heal. And I feel like that is one of the most important things is like, if you go through something like a death or grief, you have to like process what happened as many times as you need until it starts to feel like a lot lighter. And I'm so thankful that like, that is the experience that I got to have afterwards, because I feel like I had so much healing. And I feel like this experience changed me forever because it made me realize like the gravity of life. Like I said, like you could literally be talking to someone 1 minute and then the next minute they're gone, which I know that's a really heavy thought, but it just sort of makes you think like you have to live your life and not take things for granted that could be gone. And life is just so fragile. And the first thing that I thought of was like God and heaven and like the afterlife and like, you know, what's going to happen when we all die. Like the fact that I had my faith to rely on was huge for me because I really needed something, some sense of hope, some sense of like, I don't know, just healing and meaning to it all, because it was such a dark and just terrifying, tragic thing that happened. So yeah, that is my whole story. That's what happened with, on February 13th. No, I always mix up the 13 and the 11. February 11th, 2013. And yeah, that's where I am today. Grateful that I got to heal through that experience and for the people that like all came around me afterwards. So yeah, that's everything. Hopefully you guys, I don't know, learned something or something of this video was helpful, because yeah, it was just like a really, really crazy experience. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you always for being a part of my channel, and sending you guys lots of love. Bye.